Good evening, Battle Creek, and thank you for joining us for this episode of Our View. This year in 2023, as a staff, we decided that we would like to devote half of the shows to the members that we serve in this membership, and to honor their stories, because after all, that's what this show was created to do. And so you will see every other month from us, our show will be What About Blank? What about this particular person who are facing barriers that there just doesn't seem to be easy answers to? And for this evening's program, we have our guest, Women's Co-op member Rebecca Hardy. So tonight's show is What About Rebecca Hardy within these systems? Who's seeing you? Who's recognizing what you're really experiencing in the way that you're experiencing it? And I think what touched us about Rebecca's story is that where it started for us, and I know that you'll back it up a little further for us, but where it started for us was that she got child welfare involvement. She was staying in the shelter. You have 5 children.
At the shelter, yeah.
At the shelter. They're all stair steps, and they get little. This is a big place. This is a scary place. There are people there that you don't know. So she's trying to keep those babies close to her. There is meal time. You have a certain allotted amount of time to eat. You're also trying to get all these fidgety babies to eat, which if any of you have ever tried to get your babies to eat at that age, it's not an easy task anyway. And in the course of doing that, you were seen as not being able to handle the show with your kids. And so a call is placed by the shelter, and that started the road of Children's Protective Service involvement.
Yes.
But it strikes me, right, because we've talked about these things before. We've talked about families with cognitive abilities and how sometimes they may not make the best parents later. And I think I stopped being able to help my son with math homework in like the 4th grade. And so that should put a real concern, right? That if I can't help my child academically. So talk to us a little bit, Rebecca, about how this felt. Like, you're the mother of 5 children. You know you can handle these children, but put in the environment that you were put in, feeling, trying to protect them and keep them safe.
Well, I could handle them before we were separated. But I was separated from my children for months, and in that time, there was definitely a breakdown. And when they were returned to me, there was no respect for Mama. We don't have to listen to you. I had 5 between 7 and less than 1, and they enjoyed themselves. They truly did, but it was ugly. It was stressful, and there was a lot of negative light already on me because I was fleeing a domestic violence situation. Yeah.
And then once this involvement begins, and Valerie, you can speak to some of this because Valerie's actually your case manager, it is the absolute hoops that you're being asked to jump through. So there is employment, but there's no transportation. So then the transportation becomes a barrier because there are shifts outside of where the bus can take you. There are days that you have to work that are outside days that the bus can take you. There are attendance issues because of the system in general, because there are court appearances, there are appointments, there are psych evals, there are appointments for the kids, and yet the system is saying, but you must work, you must have an income, you must be able to support these kids. What does that feel like?
I was a stay-at-home mom for almost 8 years. I was not working. I was just at home with my babies. So when I left him, not only for domestic violence, but for allegations of sexual abuse towards my firstborn daughter, I was just left in a place where I have to basically manifest a career out of nowhere to be able to take care of all of my children that I had within my marriage. And it's been a process. It's been a process.
Do you feel like along the way people in the system recognize these facts? They recognize that you had always been a stay-at-home mom with these babies and now you're trying to forge a career.
I don't care.
That you didn't have any of these resources at hand, that your children weren't used to mom being out of the home.
They don't care. They're talking about all the issues that my children have now. I'm like, well, they've been separated from their mother, and I'm kind of all that they've known. Of course, my 6-year-old daughter is acting out. She's me and then some. So she has this fire in her that just only she can calm down unless she's ready to. Anyway. There have been a lot of issues with my children identified, but it's definitely been because of the breakdown in our family, and they're not recognizing that. They're not at all.
Or that they're expecting you to address these issues when you see your children. How often?
I see my babies 4 hours a week.
4 hours a week,
Yes.
and you're going to be the mama that champions getting everybody back on track.
They won't
In 4
allow me to
hours a
separate
week.
the time so I can
Focus on one
Yeah,
child.
like because I have one that just turned 1, and the 1 and 2-year-old, those are like the babies. But then the other ones, I'm having to concentrate on trying to corral them. We literally got put out of the library because my 4-year-old was running laps in the library and just would not stop. Like.
This is not uncommon. I took my grandson, who is 2, to the library, and they had a pool, and it had fish in it, and there were fishing poles, and you were supposed to fish. But my grandson's never done anything but swim in those pools. So when he seen the pool, he kind of ran across this library at full speed, like, ah, and just dove
in
into
it.
this
Oh,
pool.
my goodness. Wow.
So it's not uncommon that a
Okay.
child that
But
age
in
would
the
do that.
systems that she's involved with, that's portrayed as her not being able to contain or to manage her children.
Yeah,
Because
But it would
they're
look
acting-
different at home, right?
Right.
It would look different in a home
Right.
environment. You wouldn't be in one room trying to field something for
15 minutes.
all children of different ages.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And then you're faulted again in those same systems if you're not interacting with each child.
Yes.
And you have 4 children.
Well, I have 6 total, but they're the ones that I have here. Is the 7, to the 1-year-old. Yeah, 5 between 7 and 1.
And they're all sitting in one space, and the 1-year-old now realizes, mom's here, I want her attention. The 2-year-old wants mom's attention. This one, and you're supposed to be able to
Yeah.
do all of that while maintaining whatever that might be.
And again, in a home setting, this would look
Different.
Much different.
Yeah.
There would be specific times for each child, as they're supposed to have. There's supposed to be different bedtimes for each, for the different age groups and all that. So there can be time with mom.
Can I ask you where, because you have several service providers, obviously, for your plan, your case management plan, where did you find people who understood the struggle that you were facing, getting to work, getting everybody where they needed to be, trying to find housing, trying to make all these appointments for the kids for you? Did you find an agency that you thought, okay, this is an agency who really understands what I'm going through?
Absolutely. I was feeling so bombarded and overwhelmed and angry and resentful, and I was really reluctant to come to Women's Co-op, but after meeting with you, actually, I mean, I know I have to do what the court is is ordering me to do, but you're like, girl, you don't need a class, you need an advocate. I mean, I'll do the class because I have to, but the truth is that I have truly needed an advocate, and the courts have only been taking what the reports have, been put out on me. Oh, she just can't handle it. They're running circles around her. But we were put in that situation after fleeing, and it's just chaos, period.
And
the
it's
kids,
the trauma the kids experience
so
before
much,
being
yeah,
ripped from
yes,
parents.
yes, and we all
And these are
need a
young
counseling,
children.
and we're just
And your trauma.
Yeah.
that has not been looked at
100%. You're
at all.
Yeah.
Because you haven't had time to look at it.
I think that's like the most important missing piece as we've all came to like pandemic, and then over the last year, so many conversations Co-op has had with others is just realizing how important the mental health piece is. It's like number one before all these other things can happen. So you said you were religious, you're spiritual. So like, so speaking from that place to begin with before you have to do A, B, C, D through the courts, through DHS, through whomever else is asking for that attention and for those boxes to be checked, like you're already away from your babies. children that you grew within your own womb, and already having that string stretched so far and only having this much time with them does something to our bodies, literally,
truly does.
physically, you know. And so I think that
believe
piece
that.
needs to be like addressed. Like, we are human beings before we are names on a file.
In a checkbox that you need us to
And
acknowledge.
again, it's not that any of us don't get the need for the system, the need to protect children in our community, but in that we also need to recognize the trauma that it causes. Yes, there may be times when a newborn needs to be separated from its mother. We get that. But does this negate the fact that the mother needs to be there to breastfeed this child? And can that not be accommodated?
Right.
Can this very critical time that we all know that it's a critical time? I mean, you had young children that were separated from
My
you.
daughter was 5 months. I was breastfeeding her when we were separated. And when I say separated, it was as simple as a domestic violence situation that came of discussion of my husband and my firstborn daughter. And when the police got there, he said my wife had a mental breakdown. Now, I didn't know what was said because I'm trying to tell my own story to the police. He's gone off and started whispering. So when the police started ushering me off, I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going on, but I figure at some point I'm going to be able to tell my story. They didn't take my statement. They just took me away. So I was locked up for 2 weeks in a psych ward, and I didn't understand why. I wasn't told what was said to put me there until I got out. I had already been down in Tennessee trying to get my children, who were sent down there by the husband, so he wouldn't have to lose his job. He wanted to keep working, and I was the one that took care of the kids. So I'm trying to find my children. Nobody's giving me my kids. I come back up to Michigan only to find out that day he said I was going to kill him and the kids, so he was restraining me, and that's why the police took me away, not him. And also, again, I'm spiritual. I was born and raised in the Church of God in Christ. I'm a preacher's kid. I have my own relationship with my God, right? So as my husband's throwing me around, I'm praying, but I'm praying in the Spirit, which is not English. So we're staying in a hotel with our family at this time. The lady in the hotel room next to us heard me praying, and he told the police what he told the police. So they put it together and said that I had a psychotic break, and they locked me away for 2 weeks. So at this point, I haven't seen my firstborn daughter since April of 2022. She just turned 15. I was separated from my younger children from April until the end of July, when they were dropped back off with me with nothing, like no clothes, just a little bit of milk, and they're like, okay, figure it out. Since you want them back so bad, you got to handle this. So
And this was from their dad.
from my own family.
Oh,
My
okay.
family returned my children to me with nothing. So I went to the Kalamazoo mission, and that was when I lost them because I had no support. I had nothing. I'm trying to corral my children that are all but doing backflips off of the tables. And so now I'm in a place where I have to really, truly focus on my own growth, my own healing, and prove that I am stable to, get my children back. But then I'm working against people that don't understand me, don't understand anything about me. So I was truly enraged, but I had to take a deep breath because I understood it was ignorance. But when this lady put in her report, my foster care worker, that I make my children bathe in olive oil to purify themselves, I was disgusted because I'm like, you don't understand. This is how I was raised in the church.
This is your culture.
We just we pray and we bless. We pray and anoint with blessed oil. Like it's not anything that I thought to not do in front of her. I'm not ashamed of my
But
faith.
I think that's the two things that strike me from your story the hardest. One, that you experienced so much trauma in this breakup of your family and what happened. And the very people that we say are there to assist you and support that trauma and make sure that your family stays whole and protected didn't. They failed you.
Truly.
And that in addition to that, even things about your culture have come into question because the people who are questioning are people that do not understand that culture. But this is a culture that your children very much understand, that you
Yeah.
very much understand.
That's why they asked
And
to
no
do it.
one has asked you that question,
Yeah.
like, why do you do this? It's just, oh, look what she does. This is wrong. It goes against what we see, what we believe, what we
Right,
practice.
right.
Well, I'm a Christian and I don't do that.
So that's what I think is the biggest key to that story too, that just strikes me the best is, did she even take the time to say, what are you doing or why are you doing it? No, she just wrote on a piece of paper, you know, and I mean, this is how I
That's what
see
she
it.
does.
This chick is just crazy. Look what she's doing. She's bathing these kids.
Well, because she got labeled with that early on, right?
Yeah.
Like the
Exactly.
system
Now she's gonna
labeled her
carry
in
that
the beginning
label
because her
through.
abuser and someone, again, who didn't understand what she was doing, that she was praying in tongues, label her as the crazy lady,
Yep.
lock her up and take the kids away, and then this label is following her
Absolutely.
through this entire case. Where are we today, Rebecca? Because I know that since that day that we met at the table, you have been nothing but a champion and a fighter for this
Thank you.
family.
Thank you.
Where
I
are
was
we?
working at a well-known factory here in Battle Creek making decent money, but due to court
The attendance
appearances and all that, I
issues.
had to accept that I was being released from that assignment. It was fine. It was draining, honestly.
Which
but-
again is a double-edged sword, though, right? Because the system is saying, Rebecca, get a job
Yes.
and be able to support these
I
5
had
kids.
one.
And you get
I
one,
was so
and then they
proud of
say,
myself.
well, I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
you can't go to work today. You have to be at court. I'm sorry, you can't come today because you have to
Yeah.
go here. You have to do
Yes.
these things.
Yes.
And then in turn, you lose the job that they
Yeah.
told you to go out and get.
Yeah.
And now it's, you don't have a job again, Rebecca. So you actually have to get a job that fits within what they want you to do as well.
Yes,
Like,
yes. Now, I was hired into a home health care agency, and I'm gonna be able to help people. Like I'm used to just being a mom, loving on people, cooking for people. So just being able to go into someone's home and help them as they need is gonna be so fulfilling, especially during this time when I'm away from my own family. So I'm just finding other ways to channel my energy and make sure that I'm not sinking.
and that you're being flexible to be able to get these other things done.
Yeah.
And you've got 4 phenomenal women. in your
Absolutely.
corner.
Yes. Thank you all for your support. Yeah.
What if you could tell anybody out there in the world something that would give them a greater understanding? Because so many people think, oh, CPS was involved and they took your kids. Oh, right? We automatically think that there must be a reason for that. And again, nobody shoot Teresa. Like, we're fully aware, all of us are, including you, that there are times when children do need to be protected and intervention needs to happen.
Absolutely.
But there are also these other times, and this isn't something that we're saying, this is something the state's saying, this is something nationally we're saying. Sometimes families are ripped apart and destroyed over conditions of poverty, over cultures that aren't understood, over the fact that there are traumas within these families and that trauma isn't being respected and regarded, and we're not taking time to heal those things in systems always. I won't say that it never happens. I'm saying it certainly didn't happen in your case.
Right.
What gives you hope?
My children. My firstborn, she is very mature. She's made her stance known to me. She's not a part of this case. She's just away trying to be a normal teenager while I deal with all this. She's like, "Ma, I want to come back. I just want you to get yourself together." And I have to humbly accept her words. There are some things that I have to do in terms of establishing housing, basic things. Of course, I need that. I wouldn't be homeless if there were not a breakdown in my family. I'm a married woman to this day. He has the house. He has my children. But God, I have to do what I have to do for myself and for my children, and I'm able to do that.
But even the housing presents barriers, right?
It
Because there has to
does.
be a housing big enough,
I
which
was
is not
told,
affordable.
I was told that they can't tell me to have a mansion. All I have to do is have enough beds for my children. Even if I have a 1-bedroom apartment, I could make that work. But ideally, I would have a few bedrooms. But basically, they just want me to have enough beds and it not be in a shelter. They want me to go through counseling. They're trying to force medication.
On you.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I'm dealing with a lot, but there is not a bridge that I won't cross for my children.
There's not a bridge that we won't cross for you.
Thank you.
I see your resilience every day, Mama.
Thank you.
And I respect that you had the courage, because I know this was challenging for you, that you had the resilience and the courage to come here today and talk about this so that people can be aware that there are both good and bad stories within these systems, and systems need reforming.
Truly.
And that, you know, in light of the show that we did last month on racial equities, there is not always racial equity within these systems.
It's not. Because the CPS worker that was in charge of, filing the paperwork to have my children removed, she put in her paperwork that I said that I was going to kill my children. And to this day, I've explained to them that I never said that. There's no psychiatrist, nobody that has ever documented that I said that. When I was locked away in a psych ward and they were putting me on whatever they gave me something. I do remember they gave me some things and they had me talking, but at no point did I ever say anything like that. So even being cleared from the intensive psych ward they took me to in Indiana and bringing me back here, there's nothing in writing. All
and
it ever was
nothing that
hearsay.
came out in your psych eval that
Nothing
looked,
that said that.
But there's nothing even that came out in your psych eval that said that you were not stable, that you were not able to care for your
Said that I was
children.
depressed and they wanted me to look at some supplements to help with my own trauma.
You're
so they're
depressed. Okay,
acknowledging
but
that.
again-
Snatched your
Right,
children.
exactly.
Why
Right,
wouldn't
of
you be
course you're
depressed?
depressed. Look at the state that you're in
Exactly.
right now.
So they're wanting to force
And the
medication
trauma.
because
And
of
depressed
depression.
People can't have their kids. I know plenty of depressed people, clinically depressed people that have their kids.
I was depressed a few times with my kids.
Absolutely. I
Don't talk about it there, come take them.
And
Yeah,
I
well, they
keep
can
telling
have
them
them now,
I'm
they're all
not.
adults.
I'm not depressed. I really am not. I'm fighting every day against that. Like there was someone that I was talking to recently. She's like, "Oh, it's my depression." I was like, "Don't claim it. It's not my depression. That's somebody I fight with, somebody I don't like, somebody I'm acquainted to, but it's not mine. Like I don't accept that. That it's not mine. I don't make it personal. I'm not depressed. I understand that there are barriers. There's heartache. There's stuff that we fight every day, but I'm not depressed. I'm not. I am more than a conqueror in all things, every day. My faith is for my family.
I believe that.
Yes, ma'am.
That's awesome.
I think you have a powerful story. And it's definitely a powerful story for system reform. It's just sad to me sometimes what we expect of our families when we're asking for correction or upward mobility. Just the burdens that we put on our families and what we expect them to overcome and create. I often wonder if we took the people at the top who are asking us to do that and put them in the same circumstances, if in fact they could do it.
I wonder.
But you're doing it. Again, Rebecca, I can't thank you enough for coming here and sharing your story.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Without this voice, without people hearing your story, change and system reform cannot come. Because for me, there's not a face to put on it. So I appreciate you being that face today and sharing your story. And I appreciate, again, Battle Creek listening. And I say Battle Creek, but maybe it's Battle Creek and beyond, right, Mia? Maybe California's watching us.
Right, you never know.
Could be anybody, right? Could be President Biden and his wife.
Maybe it's
Anyone.
Dr. Phil.
Dr. Phil. Oprah. Can we get a shout out? Thanks so much, Battle Creek, for joining us, and we'll see you next time for Our View.